Nathan Foster never thought his life could change in an instant. One moment, he was a regular 17-year-old, worrying about homework and football practice. The next, he was standing on his parents' porch with his pregnant girlfriend, Emily, while his father's furious words cut through the night air like a blade. "You got a girl pregnant at 17? Under my roof?" Nathan stood frozen, his fingers locked with Emily's trembling hand. His mother, Claire, had tears in her eyes, but she didn't speak. His father, James, towered over him, his face red with anger. "I swear, Dad, I'll take responsibility," Nathan pleaded. "I'm not running away from this." "Damn right you won't," James snapped. "Because you're running away from this house instead." Nathan's heart sank. "What? You heard me. Get out. Both of you," Emily gasped, clutching Nathan's arm. "Mr. Foster, please, I don't care. You ruined your lives. You're not ruining mine." Before Nathan could argue, his father slammed the door, locking them out of the only home he had ever known. The cold autumn air bit at their skin as they stood outside, stunned. "We can go to your house," Nathan whispered. Emily shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I already told you. My parents said if I kept the baby, I wasn't welcome anymore." Nathan exhaled sharply. They were both alone now. No home, no support, no idea what to do next. His best friend, Jason, lived a few blocks away. Maybe they could stay there for a night or two. He pulled out his phone and texted him, "Nathan, I need a place to stay. Just for tonight. Please, man." Seconds later the reply came, "Jason, sorry bro. My parents won't let me. They said you made your bed, now you gotta lie in it." Nathan's stomach twisted. Even Jason had turned his back on him. Emily wiped her eyes and forced a shaky smile. "It's just one night. We'll figure it out." They walked through town aimlessly until they found an old park bench and sat down, exhausted. Nathan wrapped his arms around Emily, trying to keep her warm, as she drifted to sleep against his chest. He stared up at the sky. He had never felt so small, so powerless. But one thing was certain, he wouldn't let Emily or their baby down, no matter what. The next morning, Nathan woke up to Emily shivering beside him. They needed a plan, fast. They walked to a gas station, where Nathan used the last few dollars in his pocket to buy a sandwich. He gave Emily the bigger half, pretending he wasn't that hungry. As they ate in silence, a rough-looking man in his 40s approached them. "You kids look like you're in a bad spot," he said, eyeing them. "Need some work?" Nathan tensed. "What kind of work?" The man smirked. "The kind that pays cash. No questions asked?" Something about him felt off. But Nathan had no other options. He agreed, and the man led him behind a warehouse, where Nathan spent the next 3 hours moving heavy boxes. His muscles ached, but at the end, the man handed him $50. "Come back tomorrow," he said. "I got more work if you need it." Nathan took the cash and hurried back to Emily, relieved to finally have something. But deep down, he knew this wasn't a real solution. They needed something better. Later that night, as they sat outside a diner, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes walked by. She stopped and studied them. "You kids hungry?" she asked. Nathan hesitated, but Emily nodded. The woman led them inside and bought them a warm meal. As they ate, she asked about their story. By the time they finished, she sighed. "You remind me of my son when he was your age. He got into trouble, but he had a good heart." She handed Nathan a napkin with an address. "I run a shelter for teens like you. It's not much, but it's safe. You can stay there until you figure things out." Nathan's pride told him to refuse, but Emily squeezed his hand. "We need help," she whispered. So they went, and for the first time since everything fell apart, hope didn't seem so impossible. The shelter was small and overcrowded, but it was better than sleeping on the streets. Nathan and Emily shared a tiny cot in the corner, surrounded by other teens who had been abandoned by their families. But their relief was short-lived. A week after arriving, Nathan woke up in the middle of the night to shouting, "Where's my stuff?" A boy named Leo yelled. Nathan sat up groggily. Across the room, Leo was staring at his empty backpack. He turned and glared at another teen, a scrawny guy named Vince. "You took my money, didn't you?" Vince raised his hands. "I didn't touch your stuff, man." Leo wasn't listening. He lunged, fists flying. Chaos erupted. Other kids jumped in, fists and shouts filling the air. Nathan grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her back against the wall. A woman working at the shelter rushed in, breaking up the fight, but Nathan could see the writing on the wall. This place wasn't safe. They had to get out. The next morning they left, and just like that, they were back on the streets. Months passed, and survival became a nightmare. Nathan found temporary jobs, washing dishes, sweeping floors, lifting boxes, but the pay was never enough. Emily's belly grew, and soon, she was too exhausted to walk long distances. Winter hit hard. One night, as they huddled beneath an overpass, Emily winced in pain. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Nathan panicked. They had no money, no insurance. He carried her to a free clinic, where a doctor checked her. "She's dehydrated and undernourished," the doctor said sternly. "You need to find a real place to stay, or your baby won't make it." Nathan's heart clenched. He had failed. That night, he made a decision. Nathan found himself outside the warehouse where he had worked before. The shady man from before, Marco, was waiting. "You came back." Marco smirked. Nathan swallowed hard. "I need more work." Marco leaned in. "I got something better than lifting boxes." Nathan hesitated. "What kind of work?" Marco pulled out a small bag of white powder. "Just deliver this to a guy downtown. Easy cash." Nathan knew what it was. Drugs. A part of him screamed no, but when he thought of Emily and their baby, he clenched his fists. "Fine," he muttered. It was the beginning of a dark road. For weeks, Nathan worked for Marco, making deliveries. He made enough money to get them a tiny motel room, and Emily finally had a bed to sleep in. But the job came with dangers. One night, Nathan arrived at a delivery spot when suddenly, sirens, cops. His heart pounded as he ran, ducking into alleyways. He barely escaped. He returned to the motel shaken. Emily knew something was wrong. "Where have you been getting this money?" she asked. Nathan hesitated, but before he could answer, someone pounded on the door. "Open up, Foster!" It was Marco's men. Nathan knew he had made a mistake. Marco's men dragged Nathan outside. "You almost got caught," one of them snarled. "That's bad for business," Nathan pleaded. "I'll pay you back. Just let me go." But they weren't listening. A fist slammed into his stomach. He doubled over in pain. One of Marco's men fell, pooling beneath him. Nathan looked up. A rival gang had ambushed them. Bullets flew. Nathan ran, his heart racing, his only thought, get back to Emily. When he reached the motel, she was already packing. "We have to go," she said. They fled into the night, homeless once again. Days later, Emily collapsed. Nathan rushed her to a hospital, but without insurance, they refused to admit her until she was already in labor. Hours later, their baby boy, Leo, was born. Nathan held him, tears in his eyes. "I swear I'll make a better life for you." But reality hit hard. With no money, they were discharged quickly. Back on the streets, now with a newborn. It was the hardest time of their lives. Leo cried from hunger. Nathan begged on the streets. Emily grew weaker. It seemed hopeless. Then, one day, a miracle happened. Nathan was holding a sign outside a coffee shop when a familiar voice spoke. "Nathan Foster?" He looked up and saw an older man in a business suit. It was Mr. Coleman, the man from the diner all those years ago. "You're still struggling?" Mr. Coleman asked, shocked. Nathan nodded. "I tried everything. Nothing worked." Mr. Coleman studied him. "You're still fighting for your family. That takes strength." Then, he handed Nathan a card. "My company is hiring. Come by tomorrow. Let's change your life." Nathan took the job, working harder than ever. He earned enough to get an apartment, food, and a real doctor for Emily and Leo. Years passed. Nathan climbed the ranks, proving himself. One day, Mr. Coleman called him into his office. "I'm retiring," he said, "and I need someone with real resilience to take over." Nathan's eyes widened. "Me?" Mr. Coleman nodded. "You never gave up. That's the kind of leader I want." Nathan shook his hand, overwhelmed. From a homeless teen to a respected businessman, he had done the impossible. That night, he held Emily and Leo close, whispering, "We have made it." Days passed. Nathan sat in his office, staring out the window of the high-rise building that now bore his name, Foster Industries. It still felt surreal. Just years ago, he was a homeless teenager, begging for food. Now, he was a CEO, a husband, and a father. Emily entered, holding a small envelope. "This came for you today." Nathan took it, frowning when he saw the handwriting. It was familiar, too familiar. His father's name was scrawled on the front. He hesitated before opening it. Inside was a short, simple message. "Son, please, we need to talk. We're sorry. We miss you." Nathan's heart pounded. His father, the man who had thrown him out, wanted to talk? After all these years, Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Nathan exhaled slowly. "I don't know." A week later, Nathan was in a coffee shop, sipping his espresso, when the door opened. His mother and father stepped inside. Claire Foster looked fragile, aged beyond her years. James Foster, the once proud man who had kicked Nathan out, looked smaller now, as if life had worn him down. When they saw him, Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Nathan." He stayed silent, watching them approach. James cleared his throat. "You look good, son." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "I should. I built everything on my own." Claire reached for his hand. "We've been following your success. We're so proud of you." Nathan pulled back. "Proud? You weren't proud when I needed you most." James sighed, rubbing his face. "I know. I was angry, scared. I thought I was teaching you a lesson." Nathan's voice hardened. "You taught me a lesson, all right. You taught me how to survive when my own family abandoned me." Claire's lip trembled. "I wanted to stop him, Nathan. I wanted to fight for you, but you didn't," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. Silence filled the air. James finally spoke. "I regret every moment of it. Every single day. I wished I could go back and fix it. But I can't." Claire nodded. "We're not here to make excuses. We're here to ask if you can ever forgive us." Nathan looked away. Years of pain and anger boiled inside him. He remembered the hunger, the cold nights, the fear of losing Emily and Leo. But he also remembered something else. Leo. His son was growing up. And Nathan knew he never wanted to be the kind of man who held on to bitterness forever. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "I don't know if I can ever forget what you did," he admitted. "But for the sake of my family, for my son, I can try to forgive." Claire let out a quiet sob. James swallowed hard, nodding. "That's more than we deserve," he whispered. Nathan sighed, standing up. "If you want to be in my life, you'll have to earn it. It won't be easy." James looked him in the eyes. "We'll do whatever it takes," Nathan nodded. "Then we start from here." As he walked away, Emily watched him with a small smile. "You did the right thing," Nathan exhaled. "I hope so." For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. And maybe, just maybe, they could finally heal.